45-minute session, and especially after the lunch, to have the focus, is going to be a little challenge. I know this. To make this session interesting and to kind of have all of you hooked up to the session, we have planned to show you a live demo. Hope it's going to be interesting and keep you all engaged. A bit about us. Myself, Ramkumar Krishnan Dinakaran. I'm part of Valtech and working as a global Sitecore architect. I'm having more than 10 years of experience in Sitecore, currently based out of Luxembourg. And I'll let my friend and colleague to introduce
Thank you, Ram. Thank you all for joining us here. So I'm Ilakon Rajamani. I work as a Sitecore lead developer at Valtech, and I live in Paris. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ida. So today's agenda is going to be simple. We'll start with the intro. We'll be talking about XM Cloud in the intro and a bit about the APIs and so on. So then we'll be focusing on the automated quality gateway with Lighthouse, an integration app that we have created, which leverages both the XM Cloud API and the webhooks. It's going to be a demo that we'll be showing later on. And we'll be doing a little deep dive into the APIs and webhooks, a bit more about understanding how it works, how we can leverage it, how we can use it. And it's going to be, the next topic is going to be an interesting part of the demo. We'll have like 10 or 15 minutes to show like how the integration app works. And finally, we'll be talking about the takeaways and what's next, what's planned, after this. And we'll be having like 10 minutes for the Q&A. Now, let's start with the quick poll. So it's going to be, a question that I would like to ask to everyone. How many of you here are using XM Cloud REST APIs? I just see Andy. At least I'm happy that Andy is using it. Cool. So looks like most of us are new to this, right? So this is why it's going to be interesting, because we got some good contact with Andy in Twitter. So we got some initial look of the APIs, and we kind of used it out in the app. So let's start with the intro. We start with the XM Cloud intro. I'm going to keep it really, really short. We have had enough intro about XM Cloud. We have product team who will showcase all the important stuff about the XM Cloud. But just want to emphasize on a few things. XM Cloud is just a completely new CMS platform compared to its predecessors, compared to its previous versions. It's completely SaaS based. It's completely built on Composable architecture. So all the provisioning, all the things, it follows all the best principles and so on. It's globally scaled delivery endpoint. Like compared to the traditional CD servers, it's kind of having its own experience edge, a fancy new term. It's kind of globally scaled, right? So your contents, you don't have to really worry about scaling your CDs and so on. It's automatically done and provisioned for you. And finally, it's going to offer you fancy APIs and webhooks that you can use in your integrations. So looking at XM Cloud, everyone is screaming out, okay, let's move to XM Cloud. You see businesses are saying like, let's go to the XM Cloud. We need to move to the SaaS. SaaS is a new fancy world and so on. So moving to XM Cloud, as I told you before, compared to its predecessors, it's not so simple, right? So the predecessors are like running on a platform, but XM Cloud is running on a cloud-based SaaS platform. So it starts a completely new journey. The new journey, what we call is like a transition from the platform DXP to a composable DXP. It's not that simple, like it's not an upgrade. You're completely moving from the platform DXP, which is a single big bundle of all the features in it, and then you have the fancy other aspect, which is called as Composable DXP, where all the tiny little pieces can be composed by you. You can just choose whichever is suited best for your business, compared to the platform DXP, which has all the things bundled for you. And everyone is moving towards this journey, but this new journey is not that simple. This journey is coming with a lot of challenges, and the challenges that we can see so far is like, the challenge here with the composable world, like anything, like not just for the Sitecore. When you're moving to SaaS, the SaaS is going to have limited pre-built features compared to the platform solution. The platform solution is going to offer you all the features and all the functionalities that is kind of packaged as out of the box features. But when you're going to the SaaS journey, there's going to be limited pre-built features because that's kind of a that's kind of a strategy in the composable world. And the data exchange, the platform DXP, the data exchange is going to be within the same platform, right? It's just the features within the same server. It's not it's not that complicated. But in the composable world, it means like different solutions are talking with each other. It's usually through the APIs and webhooks. Like yesterday in the dev session, we saw him mention like in the new composable world, everything is like the currencies are APIs and webhooks. So these are the main primary thing when it comes to the data exchange. And then we have automation. Automation as well as the monitoring and reporting is also going to be a challenge. It's not just one system that you're going to try and automate. It's not just one system you're going to monitor and report. It's going to be a bundle. It's going to be a set of composed solutions that you need to take care of. It's going to be challenging. So all of this, can be resolved with something we call it as integrations. So integrations are something like a middle application or a middleware kind of an application that is used to connect with all the tiny little pieces in your composable world. So, let me stop all the theory. So let's focus on a problem. So again, we are after the lunch and we need the audience to be focused. So what we try to do here is let's not talk just the theory. Let's try to focus on a real world problem and try to solve, be with the audience and try to show them how a problem can be solved. So almost in all the web platforms, whether it's going to be Composable or platform DXP, the business needs to know whatever is built really performs, right? So you're building a new feature, a new component, new site. They need to know you're going to web. So web means it needs to perform in your browser, in your mobile, and so on. So we know whether you're building in any type of system, you need to see whether it performs. And Lighthouse is a common standard. It's commonly used to measure the quality of web pages, maybe SEO or performance and so on. I don't want to dive too much into Lighthouse, but it's a common standard that's used, right, to perform the metrics and so on. So we have built this integration app to perform an audit for the Lighthouse so that we can really find out whether the deployed version to the XM Cloud really performs. So I hope you get an idea what we are going to demo. So now let's look at the demo app. So we are calling it as an automated quality gateway with Lighthouse. And what it does is it's powered, actually, based on a session you got a glimpse. So it's powered by XM Cloud API and Webhooks. And then it's built on the Next.js framework. It uses the Puppeteer and Chrome Launcher. Chrome Launcher and Puppeteer is used because we need to spawn the Chrome browser to run the Lighthouse reports. And then obviously it's going to run Lighthouse audits and has a fancy little dashboard to show the results. So it's just a teaser of the pictures, just put them here so that we are hooked up. But you'll see a nice running demo in the later part of the session. So a little bit about the features. We want to emphasize on the features because we need to emphasize how we can use it as a part of your quality gateway, whenever you're doing the releases and so on. So you can have you can run the audit using the Run Audit button, which is present in multiple places in the app. You can run it through the Sitecore Webhooks from the Sitecore backend by creating an item or something. You can set a custom rules and so on. Alok will be focusing on that and sharing more information about that. You can run it through the pipelines, whether you're using GitHub Workflow. GitHub Workflow is going to be a standard, right? So when you're going to move to XM Cloud, so Andy mentioned in the future we are going to have some improved post actions and deployment hooks coming up in XM Cloud. But until then, your CI/CD is most dependent on GitHub Workflows and so on. So you can try to have your Lighthouse audit running through the pipelines, through GitHub Workflow, or obviously in the future, if the repository is Azure, then you can use the Azure DevOps. It can be automated during each deployment, and you can have the baseline to compare. You can download the historical features, historical reports, and of course, the most important thing here is this app is not going to function for just one project. This is the magic of SaaS, It's not built for one thing. When you build something, it's going to work for many different projects and many different versus projects. So what we have done here is a version integration, so that's why we have mentioned XM Cloud and versus project support. But this is the magic about building an integration. So it's not just for one customer, it's not just for one project. It can be reused and kind of be a standard for all your projects, all your XM Cloud projects. Now let's focus on the XM Cloud API and Webhook. Let's start with the XM Cloud API overview. Yesterday we saw we have a Swagger doc and we have different types of APIs. So let's see first, the XM Cloud, just similar to any other SaaS vendor, they have their own set of APIs. The first one being the client API. The client API lets you to create the authentication for you, like the client ID and client secret, that will let you to authorize or authenticate with the XM Cloud. And you have the projects and environments API that will let you to manage the projects and environments. You can get the project information. You can kind of get the environment information based on the project ID and so on. And finally, you have the deployment source control, hosting an organization. Deployment API is to trigger the deployments for your specific environment. So whenever you want to start a new release, then you'll be targeting a specific project and the environment, and you can start the deploy. Source control, currently we know it's just the GitHub. So each time you have an associated branch to the deployment, the source control, each time you push it, it starts an automatic deployment. Hosting an organization, I think from my experience, maybe you can correct me, Andy, like from my experience, we're not using much because it's completely managed by the Sitecore XM Cloud team. So as of now, most of us will be focusing on the other types of APIs and less of hosting an organization, because it's been taken care of by the XM Cloud team. So before, we've been talking about the API, but most of us here have already used it. I'll rephrase my question that I asked before. How many of you here have already used XM Cloud CLI? Oh, a lot of hands. So it looks like all of us are using XM Cloud CLI, but not the API. But I want to emphasize something else. Like XM Cloud CLI has its own set of commands. The commands are like, let's say, login, deployment, environment, or project. It's going to call the same set of services, which is there, the login, deployment, and so on. These services are, just wrappers for the APIs in the screen, in the end. So all these is kind of bundled up in the CLI, which you don't realize when you're using it. So it's all happening behind the screen. So in normal time, when you're using the CLI, you're not realizing that you're already using the API. So I can show you one example, a common CLI command that everyone is using, like .NET Sitecore Cloud login to connect with your XM Cloud instance. And on the right side, you'll see the translation of this to a curl request. The curl request, you can see, like it's pointing to auth.sitecore cloud, and we are having some encoded data URL, which is having client ID and client secret. And upon serving with the proper client ID and client secret, you will be getting back the access token. Normally, the CLI also saves this information in your repository, wherever you're running it, and then tries to reuse this access token for other commands. But in the API system, everything needs to be done by you. So when you get back the access, access token, you kind of save it, and you can try to use it for the other requests. Like for example, if you're using for the management of the projects or environments or whatever you're trying to do with the API, you can kind of reuse this access token. So I hope you got a glimpse of how API works and how the integration and things are working as part of the integration app. So let me again emphasize on the API part. So if you like to explore the API, please go to the Swagger docs, and then you'll have this nice little organization of the APIs. And once again, thanks Andy for giving this, and we were able to complete the demo because of that. So now I'll just hand over to my colleague to explain more about the webhooks.
Thank you, Ram, for explaining about webhooks, APIs. So I think now everyone got about XM Cloud APIs and how we are using it day to day without even knowing. So let's discuss about the XM Cloud webhooks, another beautiful feature from Sitecore, and how it can be used together with the APIs to power up the integrations. So what is a webhook is? It basically helps us to send the real-time updates about system events and various workflow actions happening within the system to the third-party services configured. So whenever the webhook gets triggered within the system, it's basically going to make a HTTP post request to the endpoint configured. So as it is a like API request, so it is possible for us to attach certain payload of different types like JSON, XML, etc. And in order to configure any webhook within the XM Cloud, we first will be selecting some events to it, and then we will be setting some rules to it, and then finally we will be saving it, and then the webhook will be ready for the usage. So now we got about what the XM Cloud webhook is. So now as a developer, do I have choices in choosing the XM Cloud webhooks based on our needs? The answer is yes. The XM Cloud out of the box offers three different types of webhooks. If I have a scenario where I need to make certain API calls whenever certain system events occurs within the system, then in this scenario, like we will be using the webhook of type webhook event handler. And if I have a scenario where I need to call the third-party systems whenever item changes its workflow, say for example from workflow state ready to draft something like that. Then in this scenario, like we will be using the XM Cloud webhook submit action type. So if I have some scenario where the workflow validation actions to be validated by a third-party system. So in this scenario, like we will be using the webhook validation action. So among these three, like what we have chosen within for our integration application is like the webhook event handler type. So let's see like how we will be configuring that. So in order to configure any webhook, so first we will be providing a description about it. It basically tells about what the webhook is about. And then we will be selecting some events to which the webhook should be triggering. So if we don't set any events, then it will not work. So we need to make sure we select at least one event to it. And so Sitecore, like by default, it supports all these inbuilt system events that we can choose from. And in order to more refine the webhook, like as to when it has to be called exactly, so it is possible for us to define some set of rules. And if we fail to set these rules, then it is going to get triggered for all the item changes, and it is going to cause some serious performance issues. So we have to make sure that we set at least one rules to all the webhooks, and then we have to make sure it's enabled. The next part is a very important one. So this is where like we are going to configure our third-party API to which the webhook has to call. And it is possible for us to define some authorization to it. So by default, it's offering these authorization types. So we can choose based on our needs. And it is also possible for us to define the payload type. So there are two types available. The one is JSON and another one is XML. So the JSON type is the default one. So here I have attached a sample XM Cloud payload type of JSON. So you can notice that it has an event name. So event name in the sense like by this item added event, so this webhook actually was triggered. And along with that, it has some information, some item information, and then it also has a webhook item ID and the webhook item name. So in case if you want to refer the other two types of webhooks, then you can refer this link and you will be finding it interesting. So now we have seen about the XM Cloud APIs as well as webhooks. So if we are developing some integrations, then when to use what? Say for example, if our integration is more towards the provisioning, then it is better to use the XM Cloud APIs. And in case the integrations that we are developing is more towards data exchange and automation, then the webhook will be the best choice. If the integration is more towards the authentication, monitoring, and reporting, then the XM Cloud APIs is going to be the most suitable one. So let's move on to the solution outline. So this is our solution outline. So we'll be seeing in detail what each of these block means. So as we have told, it is completely driven by XM Cloud APIs and webhooks along with that Vercel APIs. So we have different modules. The first one is going to be the login module. So this is where like the user is going to give their XM Cloud client ID and client secret, and we will be passing this to the XM Cloud login API, and it will be returning us back the access token that we will be storing it. And then once it's done, the next part is going to the place like where the user will be configuring the XM Cloud projects and its associated environment. So here we will be using the XM Cloud project and environment APIs to fetch all the environment details back from the XM Cloud, and the user can choose it from. And once it's done, like we will be storing back this information back to the Vercel project for the later usages using the Vercel API. And then the user is going to run the audit. So we will be fetching all these details back from the Vercel project using the Vercel API, and then they will be simply running the audit using the run audit API. So this run audit API will be triggering the Lighthouse in the backend, and it does audits to all the URLs given, and it finally saves the JSON report within the application. And Once the reports are saved to the application, if the user would like to check the historical report of the audit, then it is also possible using the report dashboard feature. You will be seeing all this in the demo. And it is also possible to trigger the Lighthouse run directly from the XM Cloud using the webhooks. So here we will be passing the Vessel project ID as a webhook payload that we will be using from our API, and we will be triggering the audit. So let's see like how it actually works. So I'm going to share my screen. So we have, as it is an Vessel integration application, so we have created an application in the integration console, but it is not available yet in the marketplace. So we have to directly access it using this particular URL. So before that, like I have one XM Cloud headless application using this SXS starter kit, and it has some a little 2 pages, news page and about page. So we will be running the audit using the integration application for these 2 pages. So I'm going to install this particular integration to the XM Cloud SXS starter front-end application. So I'm going to choose my account. So here it is possible for us to install this integration application either to all projects or specific project. So I'm going to give the specific project, and I'm selecting the XM Cloud integration app, front-end app. So this is the one which you have seen before, and I'm going to click continue. And next, the user will be landing upon a page where they will have to provide their XM Cloud client ID and client secrets, and they need to log in. So once the login is done, we will be fetching all the projects from their XM Cloud environment. If I go back to my XM Cloud, and you can notice that here there are 5 projects, and in our they say all the 5 projects are getting listed down. So this is actually done using the XM Cloud project APIs, and I'm going to choose my front-end application, that is XM Cloud integration, and it has only one environment in it. So I'm going to choose it, that is dev, and I'm going to input the URLs in a comma separated format. So as you have seen, there are 2 pages available in this app. So I'm going to give these 2 URLs, and next I'm going to click the set Vessel environment variables. So by now, if I go back to my if I go back to my Vessel project, and if I see my environment variables, you can notice that all the inputs whichever the user has given so far was actually shared to the saved in the Vessel project. So now I'm going to trigger the Lighthouse audit to the input pages given. So now the Lighthouse audit is started. So in the backend, it will be fetching all those details from the Vessel project using the Vessel API, and it actually triggered the Lighthouse. So we need to wait a bit for the audit to complete. So it will be
longer. Should be within a minute.
Yeah.
So let's see.
So in the backend, it will be doing the audit, all the input pages one by one, and it will internally generate all the report and in the JSON format, and it will be saving it. So now the audit is completed. So next, we are good to complete the installation using this button. So now our Vessel integration application is installed to my Vessel project. And now if the user would like to see the historical report of the audits, then they need to click the configure button. So here, we are having one drop down. So it's basically lists down all the project, whichever is having this particular integration app installed. So for now, I have only one app where this integration application is installed. So I'm going to choose this, and you can notice that. So now all the historical reports that we have run so far, it's loading in the report git. And if you like to choose if you'd like to see the detailed report of it, Then we are having a little component over here where it tells what is the various Lighthouse scores like performance, accessibility, best practices, SEO, etc. And in case you would like to see the detailed audit report, then it is possible to download the report and we can check it out. So this is a detailed report of the Lighthouse audit to that news page. And it is also possible to set the baseline report. So currently I have a baseline report set, and you can notice that the baseline report is always getting displayed over here. And we also having a nice little component like that tells the overall increase or decrease in the various Lighthouse reports based on the baseline report. And we have one component here that actually tells to which the XM Cloud project this front-end app is associated with. The XM Cloud project name is XM Cloud Integration, and the environment that it's associated with is its dev. And it also tells when was the last deployment. And from here, it is possible to navigate directly to the launchpad of this project. And using this, it is also possible to open the front-end app. And then it is also possible to run the audit directly using the dashboard page. And it will be the same flow that you need to enter all your credentials and configure the pages and then simply run the audit, and the reports will be saved.
Cool. So now that we have seen the run audit feature through the integration app, so we can also see the how the integration app runs to the Sitecore webhooks. So for this, let's see like quickly where the webhook is configured. So in that case, if you can go to the system and then the webhooks. So this is a new place, a new folder path that has been created in the Sitecore application where the webhooks can be created. As we described before, the Lighthouse webhooks that we have created here is having a description. We have the event for the item. We have set for the item added event. We have set the template type to be audit because we have created a template and we have set it to audit template. And it's currently enabled, and this is important, like, currently we are posting this to an API endpoint. This API endpoint, this is where the payload is going to be received, and the integration is going to get the project ID from the Sitecore and is going to run the audit. And then we have the serialization time, which is set to JSON, and no authorization so far. Now, quickly going to the site. So let's see what the site is. And here it's a demo site that we already informed, like, it's based on the XXC starter kit. And in this site, we are having a setting, and under the setting, we are having, a Lighthouse audit folder. So each time, let's say a normal marketer, not even no need to be a DevOps engineer. A normal marketer can just come to the Sitecore backend, and what they need to do simply do is, like, if they have made a change to the page or change to something, like, to see if the performance is improving, they can start a audit by creating an item here. Let's call it demo or something, yeah. Cool. So the moment author or someone is going to create this item, as it's tagged to the item added event and it's set to the rule of audit template, it immediately gives the payload information to that endpoint that we already configured, and the payload is going to have the project ID that you're seeing it here. So this will automatically run the audit in the background in the API. So if you go back to the Versal app, and then if you reload it, so I think we need to wait. So can we reload again, maybe? Yeah, cool. So you'll see this just now audit that has been triggered by the webhook, a nice little icon here. Just now I noticed, like, the icon that we have used is similar to the Pentia logo, but okay. So the icon is that we are using here is to show that it's been triggered based on the webhook, and you can also see the detailed report by clicking on view detailed report. So that's what we wanted to demonstrate, like how the integrations are completely working. I hope you kind of enjoy the demo. Now it's time again to go back to the slides. Okay. So we saw the interesting part of the demo, but let's also discuss like what is the next set of plans and what are the takeaways. So what's next? Currently what we have built is an integration between the Vercel and the XM Cloud, right? So what we're trying to do is like we want to have an integration application that is standalone. It's not dependent on any platform. It can serve for any type of hosting. It can work with Azure apps, Netlify, or so on. It is not anything specific to a particular hosting. And we are planning to run the audit using the sitemap, which is a common standard again. Like you don't have to really configure only for certain pages. You can kind of pull up the sitemap XML and try to audit based on the sitemap XML. We had requested this in the yesterday session as well. Like in the future, if you kind of have a marketplace in XM Cloud, or if you have some kind of a store like we have for the normal predecessors, like a Sitecore marketplace where we publish modules. In a similar way, we are entering into a new world. This is beginning a new journey where the community can still, try to contribute to the marketplace by pushing the integration app and so on. And it can also be a standalone application. The community members can run the application on their side, and then they can, just provide the information regarding the link and how to use it, creating tokens and so on. So some kind of a marketplace, if it is provided by XM Cloud, we can try to push it there, and so that it can be consumed by different members in the community for their projects. So finally, coming to the takeaways, we have our GitHub repo. So you can obviously go to this, and you can try to go and check this one. Of course, if you have any issue with the access or so on, please do reach out to us in the Twitter or LinkedIn. We are always active and supporting for this. Again, you can try to contribute to this repo. You can try to improve it. You can share your knowledge to us, and you can try to say whatever you feel like. Share the feedback, and we'll try to improve it. And you can also try out the Vercel integration, as it's not published yet. You need to follow this link, and then you can try to go to the Vercel app that we showed you before and try to install it like in your Vercel account. And at any point of time, the PPT is not shared yet, but we are trying to push it to the GitHub. So you can try to access the PPT, and at any point of time, you can get to these links. So I think we are right on time. We have 10 minutes for the questions, I guess.
Yeah.
So any questions? Yeah.
So what's the marketplace and kind of approval process, or there is no approval process?
So your question is like in XM Cloud there's a marketplace?
Vercel
The Vercel marketplace has approval process or no?
Yes, there's an approval process. So the question here is like, in Vercel marketplace, is there an approval process? Yes, there's an approval process. So first we need to push it there. And then I'm really not sure about the whole process because we haven't reached out to Vercel, but probably should be a communication with them to kind of review the code and so on, so that they'll see whether it fits into their system and whether it can be useful for their customers, and then they'll try to approve it.
What kind of programming language you use for that?
Next.js.
So Next.js. So we are in Vercel, and we feel also Next.js is popular, so we kind of use Next.js for this.
Completely built upon Next.js along with some models like Puppeteer and Chrome Launcher for the Lighthouse part.
So any more questions? Thank you.